and welcome back to our second pre-meeting learning of the 25-26 BadgerLink Advisory Group. This is Elizabeth, and once again, I will be leading us through the recording today. So we are continuing our work on improving the ability of users to access and effectively use the resources, expand service visibility, and build our community. Previous advisory group members have provided input on BadgerLink web pages and participated in user testing on the homepage and for library staff page. But as this type of work is never finished, this fall we will have a specific focus on the user experience of the resources as it relates to the BadgerLink website, library websites, and other learning technologies. So similar to our spring meeting, you will have this recording to help guide our meeting discussion and the development and prioritization of activities. Our main objective today includes understanding the BadgerLink website goals and how various components of the website fulfill them, understanding standard access option and how it works, what it means to use alternative options, and then finally how the website and access to the resources is related to user experience or UX. Peppered throughout this learning, you'll be seeing some questions to consider, so you might find it helpful to have a document or notepad handy to jot down your thoughts, and we'll be using these questions during the meeting as discussion starters. So before we dive in, let's take a moment quick to clarify what we mean when we're talking about user experience or UX. According to the industry experts Nielsen Norman Group, user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its services, and its products. This video also provides more clues as to what it is and isn't.
In a nutshell, user experience is concerned with what it's subjectively like to use a product or service and how a person feels about the experience of using that product or service to accomplish a goal. Just think about the last time you purchased something on a website as a really straightforward example. What did you do? Could you find what you were looking for? Did you have confidence that you bought the right thing? Did you ever feel frustrated? Were there annoying distractions? Or did you ever feel grateful for useful descriptions or other content? Did it take too long to find what you needed? All of these potential feelings, thoughts, and actions compile a user experience. UX often gets conflated with a lot of other related terms and concepts. So, to add to our definition of UX, let's break it down and compare UX to some things that it is not. First of all, UX is not usability. Usability is about how easy, efficient, and pleasant something is to use. It's a very important component of user experience, but it's not comprehensive enough to consider the holistic, complex ecosystem of user emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. Also, UX is not UI. UI is the stuff, buttons, links, design elements that make up something like a website or app. UX encompasses all aspects of the user's interaction with something, not just how that thing looks and behaves. Furthermore, UX isn't just a single interaction or product or device. UX is a holistic view of how people experience the entire ecosystem of a product, not just an interaction with it in silo. Neither a single site or app, nor the device that people use to access it entail a full user experience. And what else? It's not technology. UX is about understanding human needs and adapting products and technology to that understanding. For sure, technology is key because it can enable or constrain us, but UX aligns technology to the way people think and behave, not the other way around. And finally, UX is not a nice to have. It's a business imperative. Teams with adequate UX support not only create better products and serve users, but have a huge impact on business metrics like reducing support calls, increasing conversion, growing active users. Don't limit UX to just any one of these concepts. UX is a high-level interpretation of how a person feels, and thinks, and what they do when they're interacting with the product. Limiting your definition can constrain your ability to create truly great user experiences.
Okay, so that video really demonstrated how UX is the big picture. It's not just how the website looks and feels, it's the user interface, but it's also how end users interact with us, the documents and other tools we offer, and the experience of accessing and using the resources when the website doesn't even come into play. So since this is a really complex topic, we anticipate some stumbling along the way, and that's okay. But we're looking forward to learning together to make some improvements. So the BadgerLink website, like many library websites in general, is a bit of a portal. It's an entry point, but not the sole entry point to the resources themselves. It's where some users log in to access, and it's a place where they can find help. The site is also where training and marketing materials, news, or updates are housed. And in addition to the main DPI website is where you can learn about the operational side of BadgerLink. So while the website may not be necessary for all of these functions and goals, and there are instances where users would never need to interact with the website, and we'll talk about some of those situations later, because there are many users that do, it needs to be designed for all possible use cases. But this fall will only be focusing on the first three goals here. Next year, we will delve into training, marketing, and outreach. So who is the BadgerLink website for exactly? We have our end users of all ages, from young learners to adults, Wisconsin library staff, DPI staff, and other external stakeholders, and then tangentially, users and library staff from other states. So each user group comes to BadgerLink with their own expectations, skills, and knowledge, meaning we need to take all of these into consideration. So let's say your library links to the BadgerLink homepage. You're displaying or sharing a flyer or a bookmark that has the website homepage address, or someone sees a reference to BadgerLink in a news article and does a Google search. This is where they would land. And let's assume they are here to find and use the resources. And there are a few options. The first being to select all resources from the main menu or within the top resources section below that. And then this goes to the resources page without any filters applied. So you guessed it, all of the resources are listed. Okay, so now for our first set of questions. You can pause the video here and take some time, take a few minutes to jot down your thoughts. Try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who selects that all resources option or has been given a link to the all resources page. Also consider your own personal experiences when you're answering these questions. So the first question, what additional steps are needed for the user to find the right resource? How would the user's existing knowledge and skills about BadgerLink impact those steps that they're taking? And then finally, what are some other factors impacting that experience? So another route from the homepage is the top resource categories. They're based on some of the most popular formats and subjects and most of the audience filter options. And then there's an outlier in this section with the link to popular magazines, as it's not necessarily a resource in and of itself, but it's a page on the site listing magazine titles. We used Google Analytics data and input from previous advisory group members to come up with what is displayed here. Nice thing to note, each top resource category does have a nice human readable URL that can be saved or shared as bookmarks. So if you right click on any of those buttons in the top resources section, you can view and copy those links. So for example, if you select newspapers, it leads to the resources page with the format newspapers activated, and then a listing of all of the resources that contain newspapers below that. And there are many additional filters on that page that were not considered for inclusion in top resources. So for example, within format, there's also magazines, multimedia, primary sources, and scholarly journals. There are quite a few subjects like business and consumer, government, or even mathematics. There's a lone audience option of general public and all of the content providers. So while they're not on the home page necessarily, they are still available to assist users in narrowing the list to find the right resource. All right, second set of questions. Time to take another pause. And here we would like you to open up the resources page on the website and take a look at the different filter options. Which ones of these surprised you? Maybe aren't relevant or possibly confusing? Or are there any filters that you see might be missing? How do these filters compare with any language that you are using on your own website to categorize databases or other online resources? And then finally, have you used these filters before? And if so, which ones have you used? Library staff in particular have another few options for locating the right resources for their needs. And because libraries may link directly to the resources instead of the BadgerLink website, the resource links and logos file is another way to see the resources categorized out by a few different user groups. So in that file, there are separate tabs for elementary, middle, and high school grade levels, and another for the general adult public library user. And this file also contains a tab that has those website shortcuts similar to what was on the top resources page, like badgerlink.dpi.wi.gov/newspapers. So in addition to the links and logos file, library staff may also use the resource guides as a tool to help with resource selection. These visual best bet guides are designed around K-12 grade levels and subject areas, public library topics like youth services, and guides that may be more helpful for professional development like finding book reviews. Libraries may print the guides, add the file to their own websites, or simply use them internally for planning and decision making. Okay, another time to take a moment to reflect, especially on your use of the For Library Staff page for resource selection in particular. First question, are you aware of these tools? And have you used any of them to help with your own resource selection? And then outside of the BadgerLink website and these various tools, are there other sources that you are using to help determine which resources to use or recommend? All right, so where do you go when you have a question about BadgerLink? Perhaps you've tried accessing a resource and got an error page. You are new to the library field and don't know where to start. You're a student doing a research paper or a genealogist looking for an obituary. Users have a wide range of questions, and the website offers both self-service options like the For Library Staff page, or multiple ways to reach out to us directly through the Contact Us or Ask a Librarian forms. So we've talked about how users find the right resources for their information needs. So then what comes next, and how does the technology behind the scenes relate to our other goal of providing users with an option to log in to access the resources themselves? So the BadgerLink website, excuse me, any page that begins with badgerlink.dpi.wi.gov is open to anybody. But since the resources are licensed only for use by Wisconsin residents, that check happens once you click on a resource link. So this flowchart shows the progression from a user selecting the Archive of Wisconsin Newspapers link and the steps that happen behind the scenes that occur. So first, is the IP address registered? If so, the resource opens. If not, the system checks a Google geolocation database for Wisconsin-specific IP addresses, and if that IP is included, then the resource opens. If neither of those situations happen, then the user is prompted to log in through the BadgerLink website. So our current practice is to register libraries, schools, and other organization IP addresses for automatic access. And it is up to the responsibility of these institutions to inform us of any changes to their network so we have the most up-to-date information. So if users are prompted to log in, they may log in with their public library barcode, their school or school district BadgerLink barcode or ID, or a zip code. And not all schools are currently set up with a login option, but they may do so at any time by contacting us. And so if we think about that user flow from the previous slide, it really isn't necessary for users to begin at the login page. If they need to log in, they'll be automatically prompted to do so. And we wanted to share a couple of websites from members of our group that show examples of how the resource links, which are found in that resource links and logos file mentioned previously, are used. So both the Ripon Public Library and Farnsworth Middle School in Sheboygan have selected applicable BadgerLink resources to include on their websites. And they have added either an image or the resource logo, and then the correct access links. And these are awesome. We highly recommend linking to individual resources as it takes the guessing game out and helps your users get where they need to go. And even though the user isn't navigating directly from the BadgerLink website, the access flow as previously described applies. If the public library user is physically located at Ripon Public Library, connected to their internet, and we have the library IP addresses registered properly, they will gain access. If they are on another internet connection, they may be prompted to log in. It's most likely they are. And then the same situation applies for students or staff at Farnsworth Middle School. So many schools are also using their own learning technologies like Clever or ClassLink Single Sign-On or SSO that provide a single entry point for all digital resources, including BadgerLink resources. Students and staff have one secure login for a consistent experience from any location and a reduced burden on remembering different logins for different resources. So shown here is an example from the Madison Metropolitan School District's use of ClassLink. And their school library websites point to ClassLink library resources, which you can see it's kind of that lime green circle. And this is where users are then asked to log into ClassLink. And after they log in, the user would be presented with different folders based on their grade level and need. So the library resources folder that's shown below contains access to relevant resources for that grade level. So for example, Britannica School Elementary, Explorer for middle and high schools, or anything offered locally at the school. So we have seen definitely a big growth in the use of these tools in the past few years. The setup process is a bit different, however, so districts would no longer use those standard access links that we saw being used on the Ripon Public Library website or at Farnsworth, and they would no longer point to the BadgerLink website. So anyone interested in this option may reach out for assistance, and we are currently working on a how-to guide that would describe what is needed for each BadgerLink vendor. And then another nice option for alternative access outside of the standard BadgerLink process is the use of a proxy server. So many colleges and universities have this. It's often the OCLC product Easy Proxy. And like a single sign-on product, the user's experience of accessing digital resources is consistent whether they are on campus or remote. There is one login for both locally licensed resources as well as anything that's been added from the BadgerLink collection. And instructions for this setup will also be included in the forthcoming how-to guide. So these are only 2 examples of alternate technologies being used by schools and libraries. Ultimately, we'd like the community to know that if they are using an existing technology to provide access to digital resources, there's a really good chance that BadgerLink resources can be added as well. And now for our final set of questions. First, were you aware of the different options for accessing resources? On your own website, how are you pointing users to BadgerLink resources? Do you link to the home page, to the resources page, or directly to the resources? Or perhaps it's a mix. If you are using a separate learning technology, are BadgerLink resources set up for access through that technology? Where have you experienced roadblocks providing or explaining access to your users? And where have you maybe seen success? And then finally, what support do you need to make this more understandable? So we've talked a lot about the library staff page and how it's meant to co-locate tools and resources for library staff. This page was first developed with assistance from the past advisory group members and has served us really well. However, we've seen some struggles with use and have made a new draft version. So it's that version 2 shown here. This new version also includes a few updated documents. So we're sharing this teaser of the new version with the opportunity to explore further before it's made widely available. So now that you hopefully have a better sense of how a positive user experience relates to the BadgerLink website, your websites or learning technologies, and then overall access, consider which activities we should place our focus on. First idea, review your own website and make any adjustments. So this activity could be independent. It could be in a one-on-one session with either myself or Jen, or it could be set up in small groups based on library type. Second activity idea is doing one-on-one user testing with the new draft for library staff page, that version 2, to determine any additional needed changes before we go ahead and publish. A third idea would be to determine other areas of website areas that need improvement. Previous feedback has included a review of the resource page filters or possible changes with the login page and its menu placement. And then depending on the need, the work could include additional user testing, helping develop data gathering tools, etc. Fourth activity idea is reviewing and possibly developing best practice guidelines for adding BadgerLink resources to library websites. And then fifth, reviewing and providing feedback on instructions for integrating BadgerLink resources into other learning technologies. So again, these ideas here are just starting points. So please bring any additional ideas to the meeting for discussion. Okay, that wraps up our recording for this session. Thank you so much. We're really looking forward to meeting on Wednesday, December 3rd, and please reach out beforehand if you have any questions. Thank you.